Did you know that numerous American cities are on the brink of collapse just because the Canadians, once our friendly neighbours, have now completely turned their backs? We're boycotting them for sure. We have to stand up for Canada. You know, this is not science fiction, as the Canada travel boycott spreads. Dozens of once prosperous communities are suddenly turning into ghost towns. Hotels stand empty. Streets are quiet like graveyards. Even Buffalo and Las Vegas are not exempt. This is the reality for working-class citizens, small business owners, and middle-class families, people who are rapidly losing everything: jobs, income, and hope. And if you think this problem doesn't concern you, then watch today's video. Top 10 US cities that will rapidly collapse if the Canada travel boycott becomes a movement. Check. If your city is caught in this economic storm. Number 1, Niagara Falls. If you've ever visited the US side of Niagara Falls in summers past, you'll remember the giggles of Canadian children speaking a blend of English and French, elderly Ontario couples posing for photos under the waterfall. Now it's different. It's like a film being rewound, then suddenly paused. Since May 2025, Canadian travel forums have been spreading a slogan: "I don't hate Americans, but this year, I won't cross the border." The reason isn't closed borders, it's broken trust disputes over carbon quotas, visa policies. Even cross-border electric rates being heavily taxed have struck a nerve with Canadian pride. The result, a wave of boycotts against travel to the US, especially to border towns like Niagara Falls. While the Canadian side glows with lights and packed restaurants, the US side, Niagara Falls, New York, resembles a stage after the audience has walked out. Parking lots are empty. Over 60% of motel had zero bookings. For Memorial Day weekend, the benches where Canadian tourists once sat to watch the falls are now covered with fallen leaves. The latest data from the New York Tourism Board shows tourism revenue in Niagara Falls down 42% compared to the same period in 2024. 80% of small businesses report losses within just the first 2 months of summer. The number of seasonal workers laid off has doubled, particularly among those aged 50-65, a group that struggles to find new jobs. But numbers alone don't capture the full story. The real tragedy is the feeling bright seam of being ignored. People here don't understand why longtime Canadian friends have turned away. They don't feel guilty, but don't know how to fix it either. Many in Niagara Falls have made a living off Canadian friendliness, literally and figuratively. Many of the homeless who used to receive leftover food from hotels or uneaten pizza from kind tourists now get nothing. Street performers, once supported by the occasional Canadian dollar or muffin brought across the border, now performed. To no one, the absence of Canadians isn't just an economic loss, it's a human one. Niagara Falls doesn't just split a river, it now splits emotions. The Canadian side has become a domestic tourism paradise. Fireworks festivals fully booked, 4-star hotels, souvenir stands sold out of proudly Canadian merchandise. Meanwhile, the US side looks like a nostalgic version of itself. An amusement park with the lights turned off, reliance on neighbours, was once a good thing, until the relationship cracked, and Niagara Falls, once sustained by friendship, is now fading because of rejection. That chill isn't just at the border, it's creeping into other US cities. We'll show you. Next, number 2, Seattle. Seattle used to be the weekend getaway for our closest neighbours. A place to unwind after a hard week. Thousands of Canadians from Vancouver and British Columbia would flock to Seattle to shop, watch baseball, or simply have dinner at Pike Place. According to Visit Seattle, Canadians accounted for nearly 38% of all international tourist spending in the city, more than any other nationality. But since early 2025, that cash flow has vanished like a retreating tide, leaving rows of restaurants deserted. And worse, no one in this city was prepared for the silence. Seattle isn't like Niagara Falls. It doesn't rely on its border. It thrives on its image. The image of an international, open-minded, progressive city. But now that very openness is being Rejected by Canada. Since February 2025, small businesses in Capitol Hill, Belltown, and Ballard have struggled with revenue drops of 25 to 40%, even though spring is usually the busiest season. And it's not just businesses, it's people, Canadian immigrants, engineers, students, entrepreneurs who came here legally, now feel betrayed. I can't even invite my parents from Vancouver to attend my graduation, said a Canadian student at the University of Washington. They don't want to step foot in the US anymore. And I can't go home either if I want to keep my job here. The boycott isn't just stopping tourism, it's breaking family ties, leaving legal immigrants feeling stuck between two worlds. Meanwhile, the young middle class, once symbols of the Seattle dream, are watching rent stay high while service jobs vanish. A former barista who once earned 20-hour is now juggling delivery apps because the cafe can't afford to stay open full-time. They're not poor, but they can't survive in response. Some businesses launched a site in late April 2025, Open Arms for Canada, listing 29 Seattle establishments. Argosy Cruises to Capitol Hills, Spinas all offering Canadians special deals, show proof of residency, get 30% off, but these efforts haven't softened the disappointment or anger spreading among Canadian travellers. They continue to boycott, causing Seattle to not only lose revenue, but also its reputation for friendliness and openness. Once the city's greatest pride and lifeline to Canadians, perhaps. Seattle now feels like an indie film, visually stunning, complex characters, but with the entire audience gone number 3 from Orlando. What is the most striking similarity between Americans and Canadians? Perhaps it's the shared childhood memories tied to Disney cartoons. Thus, Orlando has long been more than just a tourist city. It has been a fairy tale kingdom for Canadian middle-class families. Children eagerly step into Mickey Mouse's world, while adults revisit cherished memories from their youth. But as with all fairy tales that have their dark moments in 2025, this kingdom began to lose the familiar sounds of laughter, as US-Canada relations became strained trips that once seemed simple were suddenly crossed off the to-do list of thousands of families. According to the latest data from the Orlando Sentinel, international visitor numbers at Disney have dropped by over 30% compared to the same period last year, with Canadian families who used to flock here every weekend. Making up the majority of this decline, this loss doesn't just leave amusement parks empty. It triggers a domino effect of collapsing ancillary services, photographers who once busily captured joyful moments, shuttle drivers who tirelessly served guests daily. Now all are left facing pervasive silence. Restaurants close early, souvenir shops fall into quietness, and hundreds of workers lose their income struggling to maintain their lives. In a city gradually losing its essential lifeblood, according to a report by Visit Orlando. The direct economic loss to the local economy from the decline in international tourism has exceeded $400 million in the first quarter of the year. Average incomes for many service industry workers have decreased by up to 25%, leading to a contraction and withdrawal of the lifestyle that once exemplified the middle class. Simple family dinners are being cut back, entertainment plans canceled, and the belief in a stable future in Orlando is beginning to waver significantly. My company grossed $35,000 exclusively from Canadian high school kids coming to New York City for their class trip, 2025 $5,000, and going down because I still get cancellations every other week. The most painful aspect is that the deep bond between the people of the two countries, once a symbol of closeness and intimacy, has now become so fragile that a mere political breeze can blow it away. The streets once filled with the laughter of Canadian children are now silent, and the residents of Orlando must face the reality that even the strongest connections can be severed. Orlando now resembles a fairy tale kingdom, devoid of visitors, where childhood dreams have become a distant luxury. The people here are not only facing economic losses, but also witnessing the fading of a friendship and trust that once seemed unshakable. Amidst this tense reality, they can only ask themselves, does magic still exist? Number 4, Las Vegas. Orlando is where Canadians revisit childhood memories, while Las Vegas is where they fully embrace the present, glamorous adventurous. And without regret, previously tens of thousands of Canadian tourists flocked here each month. Especially middle-aged individuals pass their busy years bringing with them ample funds and a desire to indulge the dazzling stage shows, the clinking of poker chips in the night. The expensive dinners overlooking the Bellagio fountains. These were their urban dreams that only Vegas could offer. But now Vegas begins to yawn amidst rows of empty seats, not because it has lost its allure, but because the cost of living that dream has become unattainable. A week of luxury in Las Vegas, from VIP tickets to hotels and dining, can cost a Canadian couple nearly $6,000, not including airfare and taxes given the weaker Canadian dollar compared to the US dollar and domestic inflation. Not yet cooling. The choice is clear in Toronto or Vancouver. They also have theatres, casinos and luxury spas without crossing the border. According to Travel Weekly, international visitors to Las Vegas decreased by 6.8% in early 2025 compared to the same period last year, with Canadian tourists who previously accounted for up to 25% of foreign visitors experiencing the most significant drop at resorts like the Venetian and Caesars Palace. Tickets that once sold out for shows by Rod Stewart or Coeur du Sol now remain unsold. And it's the American workers here who feel this chill the most, from cocktail servers and casinos and backstage staff at theatres to limo drivers serving VIP guests. All are facing challenging times. Many high-end services are forced to scale back operations, leading to numerous layoffs. A concierge who has worked on the Strip for 15 years shared with the Review-Journal, "I've never seen the city so quiet. It's like Las Vegas is wearing an evening gown, but there's no one left to dance with for locals, especially the middle class who rely on this service industry. Vegas is no longer a shining city, but a place where they begin to quietly reassess their lives. They once took pride in keeping the Las Vegas dream alive, but when the most generous visitors from the north no longer return, all the neon lights suddenly seem weary. The city that never slept because it was busy welcoming friendly neighbors has now begun to doze off, not due to a lack of passion, but because there are no more guests." Number 5, Buffalo. Every summer, Buffalo used to bustle like a grand fair. Canadians poured in like melting snow streams, bringing Ontario license plates, Quebec accents and a penchant for lavish spending, and duty-free shops, discount supermarkets and seafood restaurants along Elmwood Avenue. But this year, as the wave of Canadian tourism boycott spreads, the city has suddenly turned cold in the middle of June at the Rainbow Bridge, a symbol of the border between the two countries. The once continuous line of cars waiting for passport checks has vanished. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, vehicle traffic across the Rainbow Bridge has decreased by 31.6% compared to the same period last year. The Peace Bridge, the busiest gateway between Buffalo and Canada, also recorded a drop of over 56,000 crossings in April alone, with no visitors. Duty-free shops have reduced their operating hours. Shopping centres around Niagara Outlet have begun posting for lease signs. Cafe owners who used to open early to welcome guests from Quebec now close early because the more we open, the more we lose. A spiral of silence begins at the border area and spreads into the heart of the city. The impact doesn't stop at commerce when the Canadian cash flow stalls. Buffalo's public budget is immediately drained. It's estimated that this year the city faces a deficit of over $70 million, a staggering figure for a city heavily reliant on sales taxes and federal subsidies. More frighteningly, as the city's tourism pillar is affected, the entire community structure is also shaken. Libraries reduce their operating hours. Public buses cancel evening routes, and senior assistance programs are suspended for many retirees living alone in the East Side. The absence of buses means they can no longer reach the market or obtain their medications. Students in poor districts lose access to tutoring programs due to shrinking school budgets. An entire class of middle-class civil servants, from librarians to teachers, becomes the silent victims of Canadian buses that no longer return. Buffalo once thrived on its border not just through commerce, but through the habitual coming-ins and goings of two communities that once saw each other as friendly neighbors. Now, as summer arrives, Buffalo remains open, but will anyone still cross the bridge to enter, or will this place become a forgotten stop? Number 6, Yuma. When cities considered tourist destinations falter, even the second home of Canadians in the US is no exception. That place is Yuma, Arizona, a winter paradise that once welcomed thousands of Canadian retirees each year, now undergoing an unprecedented economic crisis. Previously, the Canadian snowbird community accounted for 15 to 20% of local service revenue in Yuma, especially in RV parks, restaurants, convenience stores, and private medical clinics. Serving the elderly, according to 2022 data, RV campsites consistently maintained occupancy rates above 90%, contributing nearly 40% of the city's total tourism and entertainment revenue. But now RV parks in Yuma are more than 70% empty. This sudden decline has caused local service industry revenue to drop by over 30% in just the past 18 months. According to a report from the Yuma Economic Association, many restaurants and convenience stores around the border area have had to close or scale back operations. Taxi drivers, wait staff, and private healthcare workers who once served the retirement community are now unemployed or have had to change careers, short-term rental prices. A main source of income for many families in Yuma have decreased by an average of 25% since early 2024, forcing hundreds of homeowners to face financial pressure and sell their properties in a cooling market. The average household income in Yuma has also decreased by about 12% over the past year. According to data from the Arizona Department of Labor, leading to reduced spending in essential sectors, the main cause lies in the tightened U.S. immigration regulations, forcing Canadian tourists accustomed to long stays to avoid the cold winter to shorten their stays or seek other destinations. Bruce Henry, a longtime visitor to Yuma, has decided not to return. We no longer feel welcome, and the convenience is diminishing. Other places will offer more comfortable conditions. Summer in Yuma has become even harsher with the intense desert heat, not only due to the climate, but also because of the absence of Canadian Friends, a customer group that has served as the economic and social lifeblood of the city for decades. The sight of empty campsites, early closing shops, and clinics without patients shows that Yuma is quietly sliding into a deep crisis. This collapse is not just a story of financial loss, but also a warning sign of the sustainable decline of a community that once relied on its second home, a long-standing local economic model now gradually disappearing, and as Yuma sinks into a desert crisis. Let's continue our journey to a name you wouldn't expect. Number 7, Minneapolis. If you've ever wandered the small streets of Minneapolis, you'd notice something strange. Where once the Quebec French language buzzed like a distant homeland in America, now only the lonely footsteps of Native Americans remain. Canadians, especially from Ontario and Manitoba, were once the silent soul of this city. They didn't just come to have fun, shop, but also kept many corners, eerie's, always full of life. According to statistics, about 18% of international visitors to Minneapolis are Canadians, and they bring nearly 20% of revenue to the hotel industry, as well as 15% of revenue from small restaurants and cafes. That means a large part of the daily life of waitstaff, hotel employees, taxi drivers is tied to them. But now, with Canadian visitors absent, old Eries are beginning to close piece by piece, rows of empty seats, waiting for a figure that never comes to make matters worse. The city is also severely affected by wildfires in Canada. Thick smoke drifts down, reducing air quality, causing Minneapolis to lose its position as a healthy and attractive winter resort destination. Therefore, Air Canada has continuously cancelled flights here because no Canadians want a vacation here anymore. For Ms. Linda, a 55-year-old waitress each workday is now a silent battle. I used to see tables packed with Canadian guests every weekend. She said, eyes filled with sadness. Now they no longer come income drops. I have to find all sorts of ways to keep my family, and that's not an isolated case. Taxi drivers who used to know many Canadian customers now have to cut working hours or change jobs due to lack of customers. The story is not just about the absence of international guests, but also the decline of the city's once vibrant energy. Many neighborhoods have started to become colder, like a warm house suddenly forgotten, with dim streetlights and tightly closed shops. The feeling of emptiness is like the first cold wind of winter creeping into every corner of life. Street artists, small cafe owners are now disappointed when they're no longer familiar Canadian customers, those who always appreciated local culture and art. Minneapolis was once an open home,